প্রবলেমস আর দ্যাট একটু বসবি তুই পয়েন্টটা ঠিক করে আমার ওখানে বসবো অসুবিধা নেই আমার কাছে বসতে
Uh,
so I'm starting again, okay?
yes, sir.
Hello. Yeah. So I was talking about that is democracy is not a static process, it is all the time changing at part circumstances. So this circumstantial fact is very important, how the democratic transition is taking place. In demography, there is a transition. In democracy, also there are transitions. What are the transitional phases? How democracy is changing its character? Because democracy, what we theoretically we have said, it is not all at the same time, not always at the same time the same thing reveals. It's important thing how this is changing in evolutionary context. Suppose we have achieved democracy, what we call nationalism, and this concept of nationalism is also very important, that is also related with the democracy. Suppose we know that nationalism is an important issue and we believe in multicultural ethos, and so composite nationalism is an issue. But nowadays, how far, why, if it is nationalism is there, why ethno-nationalism is emerging? Why regionalism is emerging, although in the democratic process system? As because these are the forces that leads to the changing process of democracy. Means I see the nationalism, regionalism, ethno-nationalism. So all the things we have to take into consideration in the democratic process. Secondly, another, since the time is very short, I am cutting short. Another important thing is the laws, enactation of laws. Laws are very important. Suppose, since we are the student of the sociology, in sociology long back, one of our classical theories, Durkheim, raised the two kinds. He has classified the laws into two types. One law is the repressive law, other one is the restitutive law. One law favors collectivism or strengthens the collectivism. Another kind of law creates differences among the people. So these two kind of laws, how it operates in the democratic process, in a democratic system enacted by the governance system. So we have to take into consideration how the changing of laws and legislation affecting the democracy or changing character of democracy. Another important thing is, I already pointed out the environmental issue, so I am not going to details. The democracy and the role of the disadvantaged peoples, that's because now it is the most popular term I have said, elites and subalterns. And subalterns is basically a term we borrowed recently in a postmodern age. But basically in our Indian society, we call weaker society, weaker sections of the society. Who are they? Basically, they are the tribals, SCs, what today popular term is Dalits, some religious minorities, women, so-called the persons with physical disabilities. A lot of weaker sections of people are there. And what position of these groups are there in a democratic system? How far they are able to participate, except the voting, in democratic decision-making process? And because that is the one of the reasons that is the emerging issue of ethno-national movements, caste violence, gender violence, many other issues. So we have to consider the democracy, and we have to analyze the role of elites versus subalterns and their position in the social system within the democratic process. Secondly, the leaders, role of leaders in democracy is very important, as because the leaders, there are various kind of political system, as because you see, whenever you see the decision-making process at the top, there are the elites, what we call the elites. Then we have the leaders, then we have the influentials also, and at the base, the common people. So this relationship between elites, who are the making decision, then after that the leaders, then the influentials, and the common people, how they are integrated. What are the links between them? Do the common people are able to influence the political influence? Do the political influence able to influence political leaders, influence the decision makers? If it is not, then democratic process is very difficult to sustain. Secondly, another important issue is this role of citizen. The role of citizen, as because today we citizens are now classified, maybe distinguished, differentiated into netizens. People are much more netizen than the role of citizen. Citizens should have an active role to sustain the democratic process by pointing out the problems of the governance system so that there should be a check, there should be a watchdog that regulate the democratic system. But today people are very free with the acting as a netizen, posting various kinds of fact, sometimes mostly the fake news, what we call infodemic problem. We have seen the COVID-19 situation where the facts were the so-called infodemic. This infodemic means the virus, one kind of social virus emerging out of the expressions of the netizens. What they do not know, consciously or unconsciously they do, whether they damage the society, damage the democracy, they do not bother about it. So new kind of damage, new kind of viruses emerge, the so-called the fake news, what we call post-truth. This post-truth is very important. Truth and post-truth is very important in the context of to maintain the democratic system. But unfortunately, citizens in that way, they are not very conscious to maintain the democracy. They are very much active with the net, act as a netizen to create the problems within the democracy. Citizens' role is to, not for the right conscious, the duty conscious. I am pointing out them once again and again, how far we are duty conscious. We are the citizens, we are part of the government, common blame of the entire all South Asian countries. We are putting all blames to the government. But we are also the part of the governmental system, forgetting our roles. Means we have the role. Suppose most of the developing countries in a democratic system, corruption is emerging day by day. And one part of the corruption, the citizens also the part of the corruption, they themselves be money in it, but always putting blame only the governance system. So this kind of thing is always there. It means need of a good socialization. Not only the socialization for the culture, socialization of political system is also very necessary. All citizens should be conscious about their rights of from the country, in the country, and at the same time, duties for the country. So these are the important issues. Suppose in COVID-19 situation, you can easily see, once again, repeatedly I am coming to COVID-19 situation. Suppose some groups are stigmatized. Our own citizens, we stigmatize many groups in the name of religion, we stigmatize in the name of caste, we stigmatize in the name of their occupation. So all sorts of stigmatization and othering going on and all. And it is a common phenomenon in a democratic country, the process of othering. And this process of othering creates the stigmatization. Stigmatization creates lack of solidarity. And lack of solidarity also affects the democratic process. So these are some of the important issues. Now I'm coming to the last part. Last part I'm coming once again. As because, just a minute. So once again, my humble submission is to study the democratic process from theoretical point of view. And this theoretical point of view, as well as from methodological point of view, I will be speaking a few words. After that, I will conclude. The most important theoretical part of the study of democracy is the so-called the dynamic process of the democracy, what we call evolutionary frame. How as part of the system of the time, this changing of the time, how democratic system changing. How theoretically it is changing, how practically it is changing. Once again, I am pointing out text and context. We have the constitution. How much constitution is followed by our governance system in all countries, though claim themselves as democratic. Secondly, the structural functional. This structural functional approach is very important to sociology, as because what are the structure of the democracy? So democratic frame. Suppose we have the political machinery, we have the legislative system, we have the judiciary, we have the bureaucracy, and we have the electoral process. So this constitutes many others. I'm not going in details. So these are all entire democratic process. So decentralization of power. Decentralization of power is a very, very important issue in a democracy. Wherever we are decentralized, however, still we are unable to decentralize. Very common issue we have not discussed now, even very recently we have come up some new educational policy. This new educational policy, many people claiming that it will bring a big change in the society. Other groups said that it will create inequalities. It means, and they said that people who are common people's interests have not taken into consideration. The issue is most important here, how for the structure and function, and how the structure and function of democracy is changing. Secondly, the conflict model. As I said, why democracy facing challenges? Democracy all the time facing challenges. It has the benefits as well as the deficits. And the deficits facing challenges. How these challenges are addressed. So we have to use the conflict model for understanding democracy. And finally, we have to accept the so-called postmodern theoretical part of the democracy, that is the elitist versus subaltern's view of democracy, how elite view about democracy, about subaltern view of democracy, how elite played the role in a democratic system, how subaltern played the democratic system, and most crucial part in democratic system today, on the last 9th, we have come across the International Day for Indigenous People. A lot of sociology department, anthropology department celebrated that functions. But on that celebrated functions, one important issue is raised. Now, most of the tribals, after the colonial over, they're most living in the democratic countries, most of the countries, including our India and Bangladesh. But tribal atrocities going on and on. Tribal lands are gave up by the industrialists. Either it is taken up by the industries, as because tribal lands are always rich with the natural resources. And so now, the day of this so-called 9th August is that to establish the rights of the tribals. And in this case, how subaltern feel about the democratic system, they said that yes, we are also casting vote. But why they are suffering atrocities? So this issue is a post-modern issue, as because we have to take up the very micro-level problem faced by the so-called weaker sections. And finally, once again, I must say that the comparative method is very important for understanding democracy. This comparative may be nomothetic. Nomothetic is a global comparison, or we can also go for ideographic regional comparison. My predecessor, Professor Islam, already pointed about the South Asian democracy. We can make a comparative frame of democracy of the entire South Asian country. We will see where are the commonalities, where are the differences, where are the same challenges they have faced, where are the success they have achieved. So this theoretical frame of comparative method is very, very important. Finally, once again, I must say that we must examine democracy both from, not simply from theoretical angle, or from the so-called realist, so-called the textual part, or what we call as this. We are missing the real part, means what we say imagined and other is real. It means to say the covert and overt part of democracy. We have to see the overt part of democracy, not the covert part of democracy. Once again, with this, I thank you all. Thanks a lot for you for giving me opportunity to share my views. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Mondal. This is Nikhilesh from Birpada College. Apologies for the technical issues that you had. Shan, I request you to carry forward the program.
Yes, sir. Firstly, I would like to thank Rahim, sir, to make it to the webinar at the very last moment. So you agreed to speak. You were informed at the very last moment. I'm really grateful to you. And that was a very wonderful and informative piece of presentation. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being with us today.
So one important thing I have to say, because I'm unable to give a complete paper because of the thing that
Yes,
only
sir.
one day before I got the news, whatever ideas in my mind it was there, I simply expressed there. And once again, very important, once again, I thank you all. I have seen a lot of my friends here through the webinar, because nowadays we cannot see each other face to face. At least from digital platform, we have seen each other. And but another important that it is being a senior teacher, I must request you,
Yes, sir.
that because whenever you should organize a seminar, for any inaugural speech or keynote address, usually there, as per protocol, there is no question answer. You can ask later on in other form. Okay, this is the academic
Yes, sir.
protocol. Okay, so thank you very much once again. Best wishes and good success for all
Thank you,
of
sir.
your
Thank you for being with us.
initiative. Thank you very much.
Stay
Thank you.
safe. Thank you, sir.
Best wishes.